Hey, and welcome to a new edition of Standard Spike. Today I have in front of me Niapod, but I'm not going to be playing it in a daily event. I'm actually going to play it in a specific matchup today against Ricky Sidher, who is also known as Sipit Hala on MTGO. So the matchup is going to be Niapod versus Esper Midrange, or similar to Solar Flare. And this is what I'm playing, which is a version of Niapod that I've kind of worked on. I haven't actually played with it yet, but it's a version that I would consider playing first. Yeah, I haven't really tested the deck yet, but I feel like it's seeing a lot of play now, and if it is going to be a deck that I play against, I should also be considering playing it, and also finding its weaknesses. So I'm playing it in a specific matchup today. So briefly going over the deck, we have a pretty similar mana base to most Niapod lists. I prefer to play 2 townships instead of 3 because I think 3 is getting pretty greedy, especially with caverns. Caverns are really good for the mana base, but if you're playing also 3 townships, it becomes rather iffy. I don't have any M10 lands, and that's because I want to try and play as many forests as I can. And also I just feel like they're at their worst in this deck because we have, like, if we were going to play M10 lands over basics, then we have enough non-basics that they're going to come to play tapped a lot of the time. So I just want the untapped lands more often, I think. And the mana base should be pretty good. If we look at our color breakdown, we only have 5 red cards, and then we have 8 white cards, or 9 white cards. But really, we can play most of those cards pretty easily because we have a number of duels, caverns, and then pilgrim, birds, and then ranger. So these should be rather easy to cast. I have added a 9th 1-drop like I did with Rugpod because, just for the same reasons really, it's really important to the deck. And in this deck specifically, I felt like I had extra room to work with, so I managed to fit that in there. The only 2-drops we have are Geist, which I'm not sure if is correct. Another option is Thalia. Thalia is not bad against Delver. In fact, it's quite good. But I'm not certain it fits the theme of the deck, so I'm not playing it. For our 3-drops, we've got, of course, 4 Blade Splicers. 1 Fiend Hunter as a good target, and then Ranger, the standby. 4 Restoration Angel. Not all Niapod lists play 4, but I feel like it's a really, really good aspect of this deck, especially with Huntmaster. That interaction is just really, really good, and obviously with Blade Splicer, it's also quite good. 4 Huntmaster, another card that I would definitely not play less than 4 of in a deck like this. 1 Metamorph, pretty standard pod target, as is these both. I'm not playing a 6-drop in this deck because I feel like the game plan is a little different than it is with Rug. We're not trying to pot up a Titan like as fast as we can. For one thing, we don't have access to Deceiver Exarch, but also the deck is more of a mid-range deck. It's not trying to just get a 6-drop, it's actually just trying to get little advantages with all of our 4-drops and 3-drops. And then also create a board state that's really hard to lose from because it's so massive. So Conscripts is just really a card to take other cards with, possibly sack them to pod, possibly just kill our opponent. And only 2 Green Sun Zenith because we have less targets than our Rug deck does, and it's just not as key to this deck. And then for our sideboard, I used a lot of the Rug pod cards to make this sideboard, as you can see, because I haven't played much with this deck. The few things that are different would be the purges. Well, obviously the white cards are all different, but the cards that could be in Rugpod and aren't would be Daybreak, Corruptor, and then Silverheart is actually in Rugpod main deck, so technically it doesn't count. But the red and the green cards are mostly there in the same way they would be in Rug. Daybreak, since I'm not main decking a Daybreak and we have only 2 Zeniths, I felt like if I was going to play it, I'd have to play more than 1. And I think it's a reasonable card to board in against not only Delver but a few other creature matchups, especially in this deck with the 4 Restoration Angels, so that we can actually afford to pass the turn without playing a spell and then still do something. 1 Fiend Hunter is just an extra Fiend Hunter. Inferno Titan, well, like I said, the deck's game plan is not really the same as Rugs is, but I figure I might want that at some point. And in the matchup we're playing, a lot of these cards aren't going to come in, but I built a sideboard regardless of that fact, so just whatever I would want it to be, and that's what I made it. So that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get started.